Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news. At www.3news.com for all your reliable news. 3 News, news at your fingertips. Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news. All at your fingertips.
Who's found Asamoah Gyan? Super finish!
Being on top of the news has never been easy. Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news.
It's another Saturday morning and a warm welcome to you to your factual, propaganda-free and intellectually stimulating Saturday morning news analysis show. This is New Day Saturday edition. Once again, you're welcome. My name is Abna Tebi. We're coming to you live from the studios of TV3 here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live also on the internet at 3news.com. We are on GhanaWeb.com, and of course we're on our Facebook page, TV3 News. As usual, we're running from now till 9:50, where conversations are brought to a close. Today on the show, what are we discussing or what are we looking at? Of course, we will be turning our attention to the BNI interrogations over an alleged malfeasance by a former Deputy National Security Coordinator and 3 National Communications Authority officials regarding the acquisition of what is purported to be a listening device. Now, there has been a change of government, and characteristic of that change, the security agencies, particularly BNI and UYOCO, seem to be busier. Question is, why should these security agencies wait until there's a change of government before investigations of malfeasance by public officials and the previous administrations are launched? Perhaps if they were more active or proactive with the pursuits of alleged corrupt public officials in or out of office, there will be no cry of witch hunting where they pursue these very individuals, whether in or out of power. For the ordinary Ghanaian, of course, the news about the retrieval or the recovery of monies lost will be a good news. And so we will be happy to see how far this goes in terms of recovering public funds that have been unlawfully appropriated by public officials. The airwaves have been buzzing with such news for some time now, and among them is, of course, the news of the former officials of the NCA and a former Deputy National Security Coordinator who allegedly benefited from funds meant for the acquisition of some security equipment meant for national security activities. Now, it's alleged that out of the $4 million paid by the NCA for the said acquisition, only $1 million ended up with the supplier, who which is an Israeli-based company. Now, the remaining $3 million, like spoils of war, were shared among 3 former members of the NCA board, a deputy national security coordinator, and the local agent of the Israeli company that supplied the equipment. Now, the named persons are Mr. Eugene Bafuboni, who is a former board chair of the NCA, Mr. William Tevi, former CEO of the NCA, Nano Usu, former board member of the NCA, Alhaji Osman, a former deputy national security coordinator, and the local agent of the Israeli company, Mr. George Opong. Now, the panel this morning shall be looking at this development against the background of the nation's fight against corruption and how the relevant institutions of state can play their respective roles in this regard without fear or favor. Of course, the spotlight is still on the fight against Galamsey, and not too long ago, we heard of a BNI report on Galamsey that implicated high-profile persons of our society, including but not limited to politicians, prominent chiefs, the security agencies, including the Ghana Armed Forces and the Ghana Police Service. Now, some of the persons and institutions named in the said BNI reports came out to vehemently deny their involvement. Obviously, it's easy to deny such reports, but wait until you are caught red-handed or caught in the act. So this week, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Mr. John Peter Amewu, publicly testified to the involvement of some personnel of the Ghana Armed Forces when the fight against Galamsey took him to Tontokrom in the Amansia West District of the Ashanti region, where he, that is the minister, chanced upon some foreign nationals engaged in illegal mining with protection from some personnel of the Ghana Armed Forces. Now, what's interesting is that the said foreign nationals identified to be Ukrainians and Russians are managers of a company called Geoprofessional Services, GPS, which company was issued a license for small-scale mining. Now, get this. This is an activity preserved solely for Ghanaian nationals under the Minerals and Mining Acts. As to how they acquired the license, the Minerals Commission is the only one that can tell. For us today, we will once again be looking at the Galamsey menace and attempt to figure out whether or not the battle is sustainable and capable of yielding any results at all, seeing that the complicity of officialdom in the illegal activity is neck deep. Indeed, it's very overwhelming. From one devastation to another, we move on to look at the fall armyworms infestation and the devastation it's causing to farmlands and crops. Now, from the devastation by Galamsey, we now have to deal with the devastation by fall armyworms. The fall armyworms continue to wreak havoc on farmlands and crops, causing major devastation with a gradual takeover of all the 10 regions in Ghana. Now, this week it was reported that more than 1,350 hectares of maize farms in the central region have been destroyed by the pests. Reports of similar destruction in the Volta region came in as well, Now, obviously, the devastation caused by the fall armyworms is threatening food security in Ghana, and the recently launched Planting for Food and Jobs program is also under threat. What is being done to reduce the impact of the pests? The panel will weigh in on this rather disturbing, developing story. We will take a break at this point. When we come back, the panel is here. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
of every nation's economy. They are the babysitters, the cleaners, the cooks, and the event organizers of every home. The 21st century woman is not just domestic, but very industrial, striving to support the family and contribution to the growth of the nation at large. However, her contribution is mostly unnoticed. TV3, in collaboration with Brain Consult, presents Ghana Women Awards under the auspices of Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. Watch Ghana Women's Awards Diary, the journey of women in Ghana, daring the difference, impacting positively the struggles, achievements and visions.
The Ghana Women Awards Diary, coming soon on TV3.
If you were guaranteed success, what would you do? You are in the prime of your life, great job, family, friends, and a great home. But there's the gnawing feeling that there's more. You can't do and become more. Becoming more isn't a cliche. It's an intentionally orchestrated support aimed at helping you to successfully transition the corporate rat race to financial freedom. We are coming together to work out the hows, whys, and whens of intentionally living within our God-gifted talent. Ready to bet on yourself? Join us with the likes of Dr. Hiaji of Leicester Hospital, Patrick Ewa of Ashesi University, Macaulay Rock from the US of A, and many more from the 2nd to the 4th of June at ISGC. Register now at becomingmore.chclafrica.com. I can't wait to see you there.
The placenta can prematurely separate from the womb.
Babies actually develop their hearing by 7 months in utero.
While they are in the womb?
Yes.
Tetracycline. It gets to stay in your child's teeth and you wonder
why
my baby have yellow teeth.
Some of them are very active and then people say this child is a very bad child, it's so naughty, but they probably have a problem.
I don't think a man can prove his fertility. It's a woman who usually can't prove the fertility by carrying
pregnant, unless there's a DNA test.
Fruits of the Womb shows every Sunday at 4 p.m. only on TV3 and is brought to you by Camel Baby Antiseptic and Casson's Baby and endorsed by the Pediatric Society of Ghana and the Ghana Registered Midwife Association. This Saturday on Music.
This week on your #1 entertainment show, Music features
Yo, what up, GH? This about N to the double IFUNNY. This coming Saturday, I'm performing live on TV3 Music. So catch me there, let's have fun. Come back, I'll show you. You must break it. You go break him, baby, get break it, mingo. You go break him, break him, you go break him, baby.
I did see more than the SCM. I want me woman, yes,
Music is bigger and large. Leg it. You go break him,
Music this Saturday at 8 p.m. Studio audience must be seated at 7 p.m. sharp at TV3 Studio B. Music is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Mosquito Coil at Donko Bites and supported by Umia FM 95.1 in Accra. Music, it's bigger.
Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming live on the internet at 3news.com, also on GhanaWeb.com and on our Facebook page, TV3 News. Quickly, let me introduce the panel for today's discussions. From my far left, we have Dr. Ahmed Jinapo. He is the head of Department of Childhood Education at the University of Winneba. Next,
Education Winneba.
University of Education Winneba, yes, thanks for that. Next is Honorable Dr. Clement Apak, MP for Bolsa South constituency. Next, we have Mr. Edgar Redu. He is an insurance person and also a political analyst and commentator. And last but not least is Dr. Poku Eduse. He is a member of the NPP and the head of the NPP Elections Review Committee. Good morning to you, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
A number of topics lined up. We'll start off with the fight against Galamsey and what transpired this week when the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Peter Amewu, who I think is gradually becoming the most popular of the ministers so far, given all his work around the country, and the findings that came along with his tours, particularly when he went to Tontokrom in the Amansia West district of the Ashanti region. Quite interesting revelations, and we'll be looking at these ones, particularly the fact that a company that had been served with a notice to stop work by the Minerals Commission was blatantly flouting that directive and carrying on with the illegal activity, and also the finding that...
Well, thank you very much. I will start by saying Assalamu alaikum to our colleagues who are fasting. We know our Nasara unit has issued a statement to wish them well.
Okay.
We wish them well. It's a holy month.
Right.
And we pray that it's observed as such. In regards to the fight against Galamsey, I want to say that that fight has achieved some results in the past 4 to 5 months than it did in 8 years. That is factual. It's not a salvo per se, but looking at what is coming out, the extent of devastation that Ghanaians have been informed about, it's made everyone aware that these things are not helping us. So now, when based on the efforts of the minister, these stories have come out, it will make the communities where the activities are going on to be aware that it's a menace and is frowned upon by the government. In that case, anytime you are going to the grounds, you will face resistance from the communities itself, unless there are remedial actions which have been cleared by the state and the agencies involved before you may be allowed to go back and engage in such activities. So, results-oriented approaches have been adopted. It's yielding that results. The most important thing is to ensure that going ahead, we don't relapse and allow things to deteriorate once again.
You mentioned that it's bringing a certain level of awareness to the community so that communities will be now engaged in the whole process. But aren't we running the risk of citizens resorting to self-help measures?
It shouldn't be so, especially when you realize that officialdom is on your side. And for that reason, you can even lodge a complaint to the police for it to be carried forward.
But the very officialdom who are supposed to be doing the right things are also caught in this, neck deep in the activity.
That's why I said in the past 4 months, more results have been achieved than they were achieved in 8 years. It means that for the current government, there's no way the government will sit down and allow such activities, illegal activities, to fester, and then nothing will be done. So anytime an action is being taken on the ground, if you are a community person, you are a town folk, you have the assurance that the government is on your side to make sure that the right things are done. You know, we are not saying that there will be no mining activities in these communities at all. That is not the point. But there will be proper and properly supervised mining activities in these areas by ensuring that anytime they are about finishing with the activities, the reclamation efforts are being put in place, and also we don't allow water bodies to be used for these activities. If you are coming into a business, you also prepare how you want to sieve and get the ores that you have mined. So that's the natural gem you want to get. Don't destroy our water bodies. We used to drink from these bodies. So preserve them, find ways by which you can generate your own water to engage in the activities. That's the kind of sustainability we are going to put in.
Right, very well. Let me go to Edgar. Picking up from where Doc left off, looking at the issues about, reclaiming the land or reclamation of the land and so on and so forth, that definitely is a function of the regulatory bodies, who clearly have shown a certain lack of, if you like, the expectations we had in them to do these supervisions to ensure the appropriate things are done. Well, I'm told we have a voice or a piece from the sector minister. Let's take a listen to that and then we come back to you, Edgar.
Military personnel.
But what we have realized recently is that the emergence of military trying to protect an illegality. And you are a typical example. You say your name of your commander. Can you mention it again? Lieutenant Kenahi instructed you to come and man this. Well, of course, so maybe we'll get to side and see if there's any contract between your outfit and then this mining company.
Chief.
Right, so that was the bit about the involvement of the Ghana Armed Forces, where the personnel on site confirmed that they had been instructed to go there by a certain person high up the hierarchy of the Ghana Armed Forces. We'll get to that, but I wanted us to look at the issue of the regulation bit. Now, just for some perspective, this company, the GPS, which was, found to be engaging in the illegal activity despite the directive to stop work, is run by Russians and Ukrainians. And it was mining, the company was mining on concessions fronted by 3 Ghanaian companies. It's reported to be Casmil Mining Company Limited, KFE and Sons Precious Metal Company, and King Solomon Mining Company. Now, each of the 3 Ghanaian companies secured licenses for 25 acres of land from the Lands Commission. But according to residents, the said company, GPS, has been mining on more than 500 acres of land for the past 25 years and causing obviously a lot of devastation. What does that tell you about the kind of regulatory system and compliance system we have here? And moving forward, how sure are we that anything is going to change?
Well, thank you, and of course, good morning to viewers and listeners and my colleague panelists. I don't think that there's a problem with the regulatory system. The issues that confront Ghanaians is one little thing. It's all about leadership. And I always ask myself the question that, what is it that the appointing authority, what does the appointing authority looks for? What does the appointing authority see and say that I want to give Mr. A this particular portfolio to handle? If you are able to zero in there, then we shall begin to understand exactly what's going on in this our country. Look, as I was just coming here, just behind the presidential drive, this Kanda road there, 3 cows just walking in the middle of the road.
I think I saw them too when I was coming.
You saw them when you were coming. I mean, you ask yourself, so where do we go? It's not that the laws are not there. They are there. But the one who has been put in charge of that office, he is the one you need to question.
So it's a regulatory issue then?
No, it's leadership because the law is there. Someone must make sure things, you don't need these animals in the city. We don't need them. Who is supposed to be responsible for that? These are the things. We have sat in this country. We've sat in this country for all these years. And we have a whole national security. And national security did not know the threats that we are going through as a nation. For how many years now? Only for another government to come to office, how many months, then it becomes a big issue. So all the previous people, you are here, somebody has been mining for 25 years. So for the 25 years, national security, they were there. And they didn't see the activities of this report as a threat to our basic existence or survival as a people. So these are the issues you want to ask yourself, right? In the year 2007, United Nations came up, they called something World Water Day, and they indicated that for those of us sub-Saharan Africa going down to South Africa, area, Angola, thereabout, by the year 2025, there's going to be serious water scarcity. There will be no water available for us to drink.
we are in 2017. No. They said this 10 years ago. And I believe at that time, they did not even envisage the mess that these Galamsey people are doing in Ghana. But they looked at the global picture and they realized that these are the problems. So today, we've all seen it. All our water bodies have been contaminated. And that kind of, to getting rid of that filth there is not even a 50-year job. It will take more than that time to do it. So what it simply tells us is that we may probably not even reach that 2025, and then the water problems will then confront us. National security is sitting there. What steps have they taken? How have the government even received it? 10 years ago, we've had ministers for water resources, works and housing today. We have not heard of a single plan as to how we are getting ourselves ready to combat that problem if it catches up maybe the year 2020 or 2025. And we still think that we should allow people to do mining. I don't think so. Someone may say that, yes, is what do you call it?
Edgar, are you saying that it should be banned entirely?
My dear, the devastation to our basic survival, our forests where we can even plant our cocoyam and then our kontomire and everything to eat, has all been contaminated.
But isn't it about responsible mining as opposed to a seizure totally?
Listen. Go to not from Busi. What my brother was starting, the Commander Sugar Factory, Commander Sugar Factory. Yes. The sugarcane cannot grow because the land has all been contaminated with mercury, all because of Galamsey. So you try it, it's not coming. Meanwhile, we spent over $35 million to set up a plant. Look at our cocoa farms. What is happening to our cocoa farms? And we are asking for more yield. Yes, Galamsey has taken over. So gradually, food to eat will be a problem. And we are the same people who are asking us not to import, we should grow what we eat. How is it going to happen? Now, people, yes, maybe as a result of our failure to realize that we could have used our brains in the most profitable way, the brains that God gave to us, we should have realized that the soil, we could have used it for something very important as against the Galamsey, right? Because one of the funny things is this. Look, go to a place like Japan. What do they have? And they fall even within a certain climatic zone that all kinds of funny things are happening. Today, some earthquake will come and destroy this, whatever. They don't have any of those kind of natural, whatever we call. But look at what Japan is today. Go to Singapore. What do they have? Even there, the water there is salty. But Ghana alone, we've even thrown about $10 billion to them for them to produce FPSO for us. Brain work. They don't have any of what we have. Go to South Korea. They don't have anything like the lady who used to be the president before Park or whatever they call them. When she came to office, and they asked her what she was bringing on the table. She said, what? My main agenda is to develop minds, brains. And look at what they are doing. So why do we think that it is gold we need to go and destroy the soil before we can survive? We failed as a nation to develop minds. And that is what I keep saying, that it's all about leadership. If you want the people to grow in a certain direction, you give it to them and they grow in that direction. So this issue of China is the world's largest deposit. They have the world's largest deposit of gold. But go and ask them whether they do what we do. They only mine a little, and they use it for their internal, like the way we have our precious minerals here, right? Do it for domestic jewelry and stuff like that. And they don't import gold into the country because they have enough.
Yeah, but we tend to rely a lot on gold.
Because
are you seriously calling for a total ban on mining?
Because we are failing to use our brains, because we are trying to tell me gold itself is finite. It will finish. And when it finishes, what then do you do? I mean, let's get busy. Let's get thinking. The gold you say we should go and dig, it will eventually get exhausted. It will not be there again. So when it's not there again, how will the people survive?
Very well. Let me move on to Dr. Park here. Dr. Park, please, Edgar has raised a point I want to hear from you as well. The fact that Edgar in a way calling for a total ban of mining. Let me hear your views on that. And then also, let's address the issue about how we're doing with the fight against galamsey, looking at the fact that day in, day out, we're getting evidence of how neck-deep officialdom is involved in this very illegal act.
Well, very well, Abner. Let me say good morning to you and my fellow panelists. Naturally, I have to say good morning to my constituents in Butsa South from BC. Oh, yes, yes. It's their favorite station, actually. No, it is. It is perhaps one of the major stations that they watch.
They watch a lot, I guess.
And just on a side note, you know, TV3 organized what you call the constituency.
Right, for the election period.
Yes, and we had a debate here. It really increased my chances. So it's one of the reasons why I've committed to TV3.
Oh, okay.
And like my brother Dr. B said, let me also wish the Muslim community in my Zongo a good fast month, and to let them know that I'm with them. I certainly will do my best, as I've always done, to ensure that it all goes well. So, ma pusi ni mina zongo dema nitia misolu. Abna, let's make no mistake. The menace that galamsey poses to us as a people is inimical and affects our very survival. We all know that it is not just the current water bodies being polluted that we should worry about. Although we should, because this has immediate, medium, and long-term consequences.
Right.
Even from the economic perspective, the amounts of money that we would now require to treat the water, to sanitize it and make it wholesome for human consumption, clearly would have an impact on our resource space. We can also look at the implications of deadly chemicals seeping into the water table and how that then affects the food chain in totality.
Right.
So it's not just
we have traces of these chemicals in our crops, plants and all.
And of course, we are going to end up consuming them.
Definitely.
So we are looking at affecting our food supplies in terms of destroying the farmlands and the vegetation. We are looking at polluting the water bodies. We are looking at polluting the water table. And that has implications. And
recently, in the graphic this week, it was reported that it's even affecting the work of Gridco. And
That's
now there's an issue about energy.
That's right. So we should make no mistake about this. And I hate to say this, but we have known this. Various governments have tried in various ways to try and deal with this issue. Perhaps we could have done more. But the fact is that the problem still persists. And we must take a collective responsibility as a people, as a state, of not having done much to prevent what is essentially now becoming a catastrophe. But we now have the coalition of minds and people to deal with this. And that is exactly what we should do. Because, look, if my family member consumes a food item which has cyanide or mercury and gets ill and goes to the hospital, I would have to foot the bill. I mean, it could be the sibling or family member of an MPP official, NDC, CPP. So this issue, I would argue, it's time we move it from the political realm. Because as you said earlier, officialdom, I was going to ask for your definition of officialdom. But from what we know and the reports that we are getting, it is clear that elements in almost every sector of our society that we have entrusted power with, whether in government, in opposition, in the traditional institutions, religion, you name it, have all been complicit in one way or the other.
And continue to be.
Well, and that is why the video you showed is very telling. Because we all had reports about even elements in the security agencies being involved. And I remember that even when this case broke, there was a banter, or if you like, a contradiction between statements made by the Minister for Defense, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, and the Deputy Minister for Defense. He came out blatantly, firing from all cylinders, quite clearly doing his best to suggest that it couldn't be possible that elements of the Ghana Armed Forces would have been accessories. But the minister, I believe, so far, has acquitted himself well. And it must be recognized. I can tell you that those of us who have been there before, this is not an easy fight. In spite of everything that is happening, the media exposure, the fact that we have all agreed and we are talking about it, the fact that almost every other person I know agrees that this menace has to stop. These people are still doing it. A deputy minister for Lands and Natural Resources, a senior colleague of mine in Parliament, Honorable Benito, he told us the story of how they had gone to some place in the Ashanti region and they were able to apprehend at least one person who was in the pit. This was after all that has happened had happened. And they heard a sound behind what looked like a grove. And having made their way past the grove, they noticed that there was a water body there with 10 of these champagne machines on the water body doing galamsey. And when the host asked what they did, he said they could only fire gunshots. And the guys on the champagne were actually teasing and laughing at them. So you can see
the impunity with which it's done.
That is my point. And it is not that when we were in power we didn't do our part. We did. But we did not have the type of collective support that we are seeing today. I don't mean to indict the media. I've been a practitioner myself. I was in charge of Radio Universe in Legon before I left to join government. But I believe that if we had the support that this current government had now, perhaps the level of devastation would not have reached this. We did. The former president put together the anti-galamsey task force. He laid out their mandate. In fact, I had the privilege of being part of the team that drafted it. It is not that different from what this government is proposing to do, including the weaning off of the youth and resettling them through land reclamation and tree planting. Incidentally, we had also pledged 10 million. So what I'm trying to say is that it is not about who did what in 4 months, which is more than who did what in 8 years. We are doing now, and it's still happening. So what does that tell you? It means that we have to come together and put our collective shoulders to the wheel and do what is right in the interest of the nation. And I would say that when it comes to the national interest, it shouldn't matter whose ox is God. Let the chips fall where they may. Exactly. If there are politicians, traditional leaders, elements in the security, elements in opposition, elements in government, elements in parliament, businessmen, insurance,
authority, wherever.
Let's expose them.
Right.
Because the future of this nation is being endangered by what is going on today. But I believe that government too must try to be consistent in the public communication. I truly think that the utterances of the Deputy Minister for Defense definitely was a dent on what the agenda is in terms of fighting this menace.
Very well. Let me move on to Dr. Jinapo.
Well,
on this issue.
Let me say good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners. I think the issue on the table has to do with galamsey. And this topic is very broad, depending on how you want to look at it. And we've discussed it over and over again. And today, I want to zoom in into what is a contemporary issue within the spectrum of galamsey, that being Minister arrests Russian, Ukrainian galamsey operators. If you look at the story as it is, and in addition to that, you look at the video that you played, there are a couple of thematic issues that comes out. One of them being this fight, ironically, as my senior brother MP puts it, being a collective activity. I don't see it that way. It's unfortunate. It's a one-man fight. And it's becoming so. And I find it a little bit worrying, especially when you look at history.
And may I ask who this one man is?
The minister is the minister. I mean,
just for clarity purposes.
No, it's the minister.
Yeah.
And I commend him In fact, you can see the sense of commitment and dedication to what he's doing. But in as much as I commend him, I find it a little bit worrying. Because if you remember, when we were kids, I mean, Nkrumah Circle used to be called Salifua Mankwa Runabout. That was what it used to be called. Nkrumah Circle. It used to be called Salifua Mankwa Runabout. Because there was a military man who was there, who beat people, and you can't throw anything away.
Legendary.
He was a legendary, and people hailed him, and some hated him. I make that analogy because today, with the exit of Salifua Mankwa, what is happening at Nkrumah Circle? It's becoming a mirage. So if Amenu alone is doing it, and it is not coordinated, as evidence in the military issue, when the military man was being quizzed, what made you to be here? He said it's a certain colonel. It means that the minister does not even have data on the presence of military men in that area. And beyond that, this Galamsey fight is not only Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. We have environment, we have interior, we have defense. Why is it a one-man show? That makes me a little bit worried, and I think that this fight, excuse me to say, is not sustainable. It's not. If you take, let me land. I said, unfortunately, by what is going on, it doesn't look it is sustainable. And that is why my recommendation is that this fight must be a coordinated fight. And there needs to be a sense of commitment and a sense of dedication. That said, back to the story again. 4 foreigners being arrested. What it means is that this whole agenda regarding Galamsey is a collaboration between local agents or Ghanaians and foreigners.
Exactly.
And beyond that, it shows that not just that, but there's a sense of criminality. And that is where I find it a little bit worrying. That the minister says that, do you have license to what? To mine small scale. They say no. Okay, stop work. I think that was not enough. It was not enough. Somebody is supposed to mine 25 acres. The person has been mining for what? 25 years on 500 acres.
More than.
That's a crime. So what happens to the, what do they call it, the Galamsey courts that they set up? 14 of them. The Galamsey courts that is. Have you heard that anybody have been prosecuted? That is why, once again, I say, this whole fight, excuse me to say, it's not sustainable. It's not. Because if somebody commits a crime, do you just say stop and you just leave? No, you have to prosecute the person.
It's a very important issue you're raising, because I have noted here that it's reported that the GPS, that company, was issued with the stop work order on May 18th or so. But then they carried on with. And my question is, and tying into what you're raising here, was that the most appropriate thing to do in the circumstances? Just issue a stop work?
That is my problem. And we'll get, look, that is one of my biggest problems with this current administration. And we'll get to other nitty-gritties about corruption and stuff like that. No, it's my major problem that somebody is doing something illegal. In fact, this company, Geo Professional Services, the point is that it's not as if they are not qualified to mine. They are qualified to mine in a certain area with a certain license.
Exactly.
They were given a license to mine. They were mining at the wrong place and above the hectares that they are supposed to mine.
But that's where another catch is, because they are foreigners, but they were given a license to do small-scale mining. And per the Minerals and Mining Act,
that is illegal.
Exactly. So the question is, why were they even given that license in the first place?
That's also another difference.
It's a very important point.
It's a very important issue. But what I'm trying to say is that, at the end of the day, Abuna, this whole Galamsey fight, this issue, and look, I have a serious problem with this whole system. If you quite remember, there was a fiat that was given by the minister that, look, 21 days, stop work. Stop doing illegal mining. Then later he gave them another 30 days. Stop work. Do you understand? My point is that if somebody is doing something illegal, in the first place, by what you are doing which is illegal, is a criminal offense. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you need to be prosecuted. You need to be prosecuted. And beyond that, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, his job is not only to go and be driving people from doing Galamsey. His job is to sit in the office.
But how sustainable is that even? Can he be touring around the whole country for the term of his period as minister?
More or less goes to reaffirm my skepticism of the sustainability of this fight. And for me, I think the approach that is being taken is a wrong approach. That is my layman's position. It's a wrong approach in the sense that, look, I commend the minister, as I did indicate initially, his commitment, dedication, and hard work to fighting galamsey. But I believe that he cannot be a one-man Rambo, going everywhere. He has a job to do. That job is to sit in the office and formulate policies. All he needs to do is to rope in the various stakeholders, such as the military, the Forestry Commission, all the individuals who are involved, to make sure that they do the job. But the whole system of the minister and his deputies hopping around the country trying to stop people, for me, unfortunately, it's not going to work.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And I say so because if you have a leader who is not giving you the assurance that when you take these steps, your job is safe, it comes with its own perils. So for the current minister, Honorable Amewu, he has a full assurance of the government, of the president, that he should fight this menace. As to whether it's a coordinated effort or not, what I would say is that the journey of 1,000 miles will begin with a step. So this is just a step. It's not as if he is going to abdicate his office in Accra, remain on the field throughout. No, that is not how it's going to be about. It's going to be a coordinated and sustained effort of the government. As a new minister, he has to apprise himself of what is happening on the ground. Once he gets these developments, he will then liaise with the key institutions involved, the military. You know, you can't sit in Accra and know that it's military personnel who are offering protection to these persons. Now he has gotten first-hand information about that. He will pick intelligence about names, as one of them was mentioned. He will liaise with the security apparatus to question whether they actually sent these persons on the field. So when Honorable Apak was speaking, he said, it's been done, the Deputy Defense Minister contradicted. I don't think it was a contradiction per se. What he meant was this, that the military has not gotten any official policy putting people out there to go and protect them. But you know that they are, we have black sheep in every family. So these persons have gone beyond what they are expected to do for the state. In that case, once they are picked up, they have internal processes of dealing with persons who go beyond the law or breach the law, and then take them through that process. So that is basically what the defense minister said, and the deputy defense minister said that we shouldn't take it as if it's to undermine the position of the government that we are fighting this menace once and for all. If you look at the stories that are coming out, let's look at these periods involved. We are talking of 25 years and all those. I mean, we've been in the Fourth Republic for 25 years now. Who has held the chunk, the biggest portion of government in this period? You know, just a minute.
I would want us
I'm coming. Let me tell you. So I'm telling you that it's gone on for a longer period in the Fourth Republic. Right. He's been superintended more by the NDC, and these, activities, illegal activities were not fought. Now this government is saying that we are putting our foot on the ground. It's going to take place. So let's actually trust that it's going to happen. We should not think that the media just came on board all of a sudden, as if they were just so interested in Galamsey fight. It meant that this government showed the way. They bought into it, and then when you realize that there's a leadership actually backing you, then you will be on board to also go and help. So that's why we are getting the media help. It's not as if the other governments that have passed couldn't have gotten that help. They could have gotten it, and therefore you should commend the current government and see to it that this fight is won. I will once again want to disagree with Dr. Jinapo that this is a one-man fight. It is not. You know, we have a sector minister who is at the forefront. At the back positions, you don't know other persons who are involved, working with him, giving him information. Now he's going to liaise with the military, the police, the national security apparatus, and then make
but
sure
you see,
that
about that angle.
Of course,
you know, there's a minister for science, innovation, environment. We don't see, because this is also an environmental issue, obviously. But we don't see that synergy, if you like.
Well,
between
it's going to develop over the years. Of course, some of our institutions have suffered dysfunctions over the years. For instance, I've worked. I started my young career as a lawyer, working with a law NGO that was into fighting this menace, called Center for Public Interest Law. We used to sue these mining companies in Takwa, in all areas. One of the companies that I remember we worked on was Bonte gold mines. You know, they destroyed the Bonte water bodies and all these community bodies. And we went against them. We sued EPA as well because they were supposed to ensure that they had engaged in the reclamation exercise that they promised. They didn't do it. So it's going to be a sustained effort. Of course, it's going to be led by key persons. So when you see them fronting, it doesn't mean that
but so far it seems to be just one person, which is Dr. Jinapo's point.
No, it's just because it's starting. More will come on board and then fight it. And that takes me to the aspect of prosecution, that he said no one has been prosecuted. I mean, we as lawyers know how it is to prosecute someone. You have to be patient, build the evidence, and then you go against the person. It's not as if you can just arrest persons and then detain them, because there's a limit to the extent of detention you can do. And then you don't want to rush and go and put someone in court, and then the case is dismissed to embarrass you. So we'll take all the evidence, build cases against these individuals. Of course, we have foreigners involved. Definitely they wouldn't come into this country with initial intention or declaration that they are coming to engage in mining. They have Ghanaian complicities. And such persons will eventually be found out. They will be charged. That's why in our laws we have abatement of crimes, we have conspiracies. They can easily be charged as well. So everyone should trust this government that is going to do that work for Ghanaians.
Very well, Edgar.
I think I have the right of first refusal.
No, let's go to Dr. Jinapo quickly.
First of all,
briefly.
Dr. Duse, a couple of things. Number one, this issue about the Deputy Defense Minister saying that there's no records to the effect that there's any military body or whatever which is being assigned to protect or guide any Galamsey site, in itself goes to reinforce the fact that the point that I made, that when people commit crimes under the dispensation or spectrum of what Galamsey, they need to be punished. So these military men there, by virtue of the statement being made by the Deputy Defense Minister, show that they acted illegally.
Right.
That is number one.
But let me quote something. You know, the defense minister in a reaction to this...
I don't know what... I'm just making
reference to... So let me
just,
for purposes of, helping the conversation here, he says that the military had not officially ordered any such acts. And so the culprits should be made to face the full rigors of the law if found culpable. He said, as far as he was concerned, and this is the minister, the substantive minister, the military was to provide protection for large-scale miners who were being pestered by illegal miners. And then he goes on to say that any other thing apart from that was against the law and should not be allowed to continue.
Yes. So Abnishu says that.
So apparently there was a certain MOU reached between the large-scale mining companies and the military for some protection, and that dates back to I think last year.
So in this particular instance,
that didn't apply.
That didn't apply. So these guys faulted.
Exactly.
And they need to be punished. Secondly, I'm speaking to the minister's statement. Dr. Lisa talks about you need to prepare evidence and blah, 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 all those things. Listen to what the minister said, and this is a direct quote, that your license is for small-scale mining, which is the preserve of Ghanaian nationals. In effect, what you are doing is illegal. See what you have done to the environment. You can't do this to your country, and I want you to stop work immediately. You should have ordered for the arrest.
But they were arrested.
Well,
and they've been sent to Accra, as far as I'm concerned.
That's a different thing. Do you understand what I'm saying? If they were arrested, that's a different thing. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that at the end of the day, you and I, and Dr. Lucia and everybody, including our viewers, know that this fight, but the enormity of it is one that we as a country cannot say that we are vesting it into the hands of a single person. We cannot say that. It has to be a collective responsibility. And that is where I take a little bit of fault, even though I didn't want to comment about it. When Dr. Duise made reference to the fact that the 4 months that they've been in power, what they've done is more than 8 years. When in fact, you do not have data. I would have expected that the minister or whoever, whatever agency is responsible for this, must give us a periodic information of where they've gotten to in terms of the fight against galamsey. When we took power, this was the number of galamsey sites that we had. Within this period, these are the number that we'll be able to what? To stop. These are the number of people that will be able to what? To give jobs. These are the number of people that we've repatriated. These are the number. We need data. Data. And that is what the ordinary Ghanaian needs. But to say we are doing well because every day we are on TV, the media is following us, we've told these people to stop work.
You want evidence-based reporting.
That is not enough.
Well, okay, but we will come to that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we go back. But Dr. Jinapo, you said that was a very brief rebuttal, but that was quite... But that's fine. We'll take a break. When we come back, we continue with this discussion on galamsey.
Everything you need to know. Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news. Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news. All are us at www.3news.com for all your reliable news. 3 News, news at your fingertips. Visit us at www.3news.com for all your reliable news. 3 News, news at your fingertips. Captivating. Reliable.
President Mahama, who addressed a Deborah of chiefs and people of
credible and breaking news.
3news.com for all your reliable news. 3 News, news at your fingertips. Captivating.
Top weddings shows Saturdays at 3:30 p.m. right here on TV3.
Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7. We're also streaming live on the internet at 3news.com, also on GhanaWeb.com and on our Facebook page at TV3 News. I'll take some messages from viewers and listeners quickly and then go back to the panel for their conclusions on the Galamsey issue. Now, this one is coming in from Edwin in Achimota. He says, hi, good morning, Abna, to you and to your discussants. I can't think far how can 3 former ministers share 3 million among themselves and work freely? Okay, so you're preempting our discussion, but they were not ministers, by the way. They were officials of the NCA, board members and deputy national security coordinator. AU Farouk and Tamale says President Nanado should not let the fight for Galamsey be a 9-day wonder. He should walk the talk. And Majid Ali and Tamale says the issue of Galamsey must be intensified, especially looking at the mess it has caused us. Anybody who stands in the way must equally be arrested, no matter the status of the person. Galamsey must stop today. Hi, good morning, Abna. Galamsey is a big problem to us. Medically, some of the doctors have been telling us the contaminated water bodies cause kidney failures, and the number of these cases are increasing. The laws must work and be enforced. Fusaini Shamsuddin in Bolga says, we can win the fight against Galamsey if we allow the laws of the land to strictly deal with those involved in the act so as to deter others from repeating same. This one is coming in from Swal Hadin in Wa. He says, good morning, Abna. We are winning the war in this Nana Akufo-Addo's administration because he's got the men to handle it in diverse ways. So the NDC should give Nana Addo a break. Enough of the propaganda. Ghana is ready to work again. Mahmoud from Wa says, I want to commend Honorable Clement Apak for his submission. He is honest and talks as a Ghanaian. Mr. Clement Apak, a very good morning to you and the entire team. He says, you are making us proud. Please keep it up. Thanks to Dr. Jinapo for digesting the issues about the fight against Galamsey. And Abdul in Medina says, good morning, Abna and the panelists. In fact, Dr. Apak has made the best contribution of his political career. If we have the opposition to be contributing the way Dr. Apak just did, then we'll be on the path to glory. Mr. Edgar also hit the nail right on the head. I'm loving the conversation this morning. He says, you guys are portraying citizenship this morning. Let me take this last one. He says, the minister is ignorantly fighting the Galamsey menace by not coordinating with other relevant agencies. This has political coloration as it still allows effective mining by these criminals. Being a lone ranger cannot effectively tackle the Galamsey issue. It's just a smokescreen attempt and pretentious approach, and in so doing protects the so-called financiers of the NPP. Well, that's a bit speculative there. Travel down these areas of Galamsey and you see that the Galamsey activity is still going on as usual. This is IB. Quite a number of the text here suggesting that the laws must work. The laws must work. Clearly, we've degenerated into a very lawless state. I mean, I say this cautiously, but I think that is a fact. It's undisputed. And what are we doing about that? Because clearly that is what has brought us to this point. The laws are being totally disregarded. we are not enforcing them. And to top it up, we have public officials, traditional authorities in high places, engaging in these very illegal activities. Edgar, let me hear from you.
Let me first of all bring a few things.
That would be your final submission on this issue. So,
from as explained, Jinapor is talking about what the ordinary man sees on the ground and the expectations of the ordinary man. Edu is also trying to say that there are processes, due process, procedures, and stuff like that. So it is not as if no one is working. So from both sides, they are right. But then normally, the public court really weighs a lot. At times, you should understand where they're coming from. Right. Yes, it is true that guys have been arrested. The Russian people are in Accra here. And processes are, going to play. But there's one thing I also need to clear. My brother Jinapo said, yes, there is actually an interministerial committee in place, right? And that one is headed by Frimpong Boateng, the Minister for Environment.
Isn't that the one that's supposed to look into the alternative livelihoods?
No. On this, how do you call it? This whole Galamsey, the president has set up a special ministerial team headed by Frimpong Boateng, the Minister for the Environment, because,
How efficient is it?
Oh, they've just started. I don't know what matter, but I know that as to the efficiency, it's another. But the public should be a little patient. Be patient small.
I think that committee is the one to look into the alternative livelihoods for people engaged in Galamsey. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's all part of what is going on because it's part the environment is doing it. But there's one thing that is very crucial that we need to understand here. As we sit today, nobody has a license to do any business so far as mining is concerned.
The Constitution doesn't even allow that.
You see, the Constitution is very clear in Article 268. It says that every license, whether you're a major or small scale of work, must be ratified by Parliament. And Parliament has not ratified any license. So, in effect, all the miners, whether you are large scale, medium scale, jumbo jet scale, everybody, you are illegal. And we must get it clear. The law is the law, and we must let the law work. You see, it is very clear in the Constitution, Article 268 here. It says that everyone, so for anyone who has been given a concession, and by that is, I think, Minerals Commission has given you whatever, blah, 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 it must come to Parliament for ratification. So far as the thing has not come to Parliament for ratification, your license is invalid. So why are we allowing this mess, to go on? And that is a problem that I keep saying. You see, everything is leadership.
So then quickly, let me ask Dr. Edusei here. I'll come back to you, Edgar. Dr. Edusei, does it mean then that the Minerals and Mining Act is inconsistent with the Constitution? Because the Minerals Commission operates under the Establishing Act, which is the Minerals and Mining Act. Was that done in a way that suggests that it was inconsistent with the constitutional provision then?
Well, I won't say so. I would say that if that's the case, it would need to be tested and that pronounced upon by a higher court, normally the Supreme Court.
Right.
Other than that, there are official acts which I believe are deemed to be properly done.
And they're pursuing their mandate under that?
Under the Constitution. What he talked about, the ratification by Parliament, it can take several forms. When Parliament passes a legislation, such as the Minerals and Mining Act, which is enabling regulation, and then delegates a lot of these
agencies
powers to agencies for them to act, it will normally not require that it's announced that the ratification is going to take place before it will be deemed to have been done. Sometimes it could be a form of notification to Parliament, which they know how they work in Parliament. This would say is going on normally, and therefore do your supervisory activities. So until you are aware that these processes were not followed, you can just declare that whether it's a giant mining firm or it's a mini mining firm.
On the contrary, I am aware that they have not come to Parliament for ratification. Yes.
Well, I think they've gone through all the processes.
No, they haven't. But that's what I'm saying, that I am aware. I'm emphatic that they have not gone through it. And when you go to the Minerals Commission, they themselves know that they failed to do it. So the question is that, I always say, leadership the one in charge of Minerals Commission, not today. This is.
So you're looking at the office, not the people in there.
Yes, we are talking about the office,
right?
That since for how many years, as you rightly, we've been operating this our thing for 25 years. Okay, so for all these years, what has happened to it? So these are the issues. So if we blatantly ignore it, and then I'll ask APAC and his people, you are sitting in Parliament, and you know that these are things that you people have to rectify. So Parliament is of all the kinds of statements you make on the floor of the House. Why is it that no parliamentarian has raised to Mr. Speaker, how come that all these mining things that are going on, people make statements on the floor?
On that note, Edgar, let me pass it on to, yes.
Dr.
Apatu, yes. Dr. Pak, let's hear you on this.
And the question I'm asking is this. The issue of Gaza, the question is the ratification. That's what I'm asking.
Very well, Edgar. So I'm passing it on to
Well, but you're also a citizen. You have the right to test it.
Yes.
As Dr. Duse rightly stated. But as a matter of fact, the issue of Galamsey has been a subject for many statements on the floor of Parliament. So quite clearly, I would say that the level of attention and the effort being put in is across board. And that is why I continue to say that where we are was not the doing of one entity or one political party. And that is why I have no choice but to rebut in a very subtle way to the Dr. Eduse's insistence of the successes that they had achieved.
I thought that was settled. You already did that.
No.
This is your concluding remarks on this.
The point I want to make is this. If we are to be honest, our ancestors, our forefathers definitely mined gold in this country. The methods and the processes that they used were not inimical to the environment and therefore to our survival. It is the exposure where we send some artisanal miners to China to go and learn new methods of mining that has led us to where we are.
Oh, that they come in here.
And incidentally, this happened under the Kufuor regime. So it is very important that if we are going to look at the source of the challenge,
I thought you didn't want to naturalize that.
Licenses granted 25 years ago.
So the point I'm making is that if the argument is that we should find a regime to blame,
no,
it is not going to be only the NDC.
No.
It is also going to be the NPP, where the current president served in a very high position. So let's put the past behind us.
But that was done. You brought it back. There's consensus that we don't need to apportion that blame. It doesn't help anyone.
No, the other point. No, it's important.
No, please let him land.
So the point I'm making is that let's move on. The blame game is not going to help any of us. We have committed to support. We have said it. When we were fighting this menace, I don't remember any high-profile MPP government official of the previous regime or in opposition speaking in support of what we were doing under President Mahama. But we are doing it because we see this as a national
interest thing, and we're doing that. I think we don't need to go back and forth on this. But Edgar, please, 30 seconds to wrap up.
Yeah, so the point I made earlier about the stoppage of this business, that we should stop it.
You are calling for a total ban
on
total
mining.
Ban. Large scale, small scale,
whatever. Because tomorrow, water to drink will be a problem for us. Food to eat will be a problem for us. And I'll tell you one interesting thing. Even our cocoa, together with the proceeds from gold, right, in a year, does not even come up to, let's say, even $5 billion, right? Even our cocoa, together with the gold, we do not even get $5 billion. But somebody is using the same land for palm oil, and the person is getting over $12 billion. Okay? So if we don't know the use of the land, somebody is using the same land and getting $12 billion a year. We are using that, we are destroying the land, and the gold and the cocoa itself is not even giving us $5 billion. So if we can't think, then I think we got a problem. So leadership must start putting things in place. We need the soil to grow food, and that food will give us better life than this gold business.
Sure. Dr. Jinapo, your concluding remarks on this. How do we stop this? I want to direct question to you, and then you
go ahead.
know, how do we stop the wanton abuse of power, like we see or we saw in the case of the Ghana Armed Forces personnel there, for instance?
Well,
that's just one example of many.
Well, I mean, the point is this. I always say that galamsey is not termed illegal just by accident. It is termed illegal because as a country, our laws frowns on it. And the reason why our laws frowns on it is because we are a country of laws. And I strongly believe that, and with specific reference to the example that you made, which is the military, the reason why we haven't been able to win this fight, and which for some of us, especially with specific reference to the approach which is being used, it makes us a little bit skeptical and cynical, is that institutions must work. We have institutions that have responsibilities of what? Ensuring that this whole illegality is stopped. One of them being what? The military. Another being what? The Forestry Commission, the Minerals Commission, and all these what? Institutions. They are there. It's not as if they are not there. They are there and they've been there forever. The only reason why we have this going on is because those institutions,
district assemblies,
all the various
stakeholders,
because they are not working. And I have always said that, look, this galamsey fight should not be a political issue, but to a reasonable extent, it is. It is a political issue. I would want to see an Amado administration being able to what? To eradicate this whole galamsey menace, such that one day, he can be credited as the person who was able to stop galamsey. And that would be a legacy.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. That would be a legacy. So when some of us are a little bit critical of the approach that is being used, it's not as if we are being mischievous or diabolic, but we are being realistic.
You're only being a citizen and not a spectator, and that's it. So.
And that realism is informed by the fact that, look, there have been actions. And that's where sometimes I disagree with Dr. Dusa when he says that nothing was done under the NDC. The NDC had the Ministerial Task Force, if you remember. Ministerial Task Force, even though that task force unfortunately was a mirage.
Really?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. No.
Really?
That's a fact. But that's we are still here. Dr. Park.
They apprehended a number of diggers.
I'm coming. Dr. Park. Dr. Park.
Very well. We need to wrap up on this and move on.
This is the reason why. I've always insisted that there needs to be empirical data to show the progress. So if
you were not reported,
you should have reported and it should have been on paper. And that is why the MPP should not commit that mistake.
And given the context we operate in, perhaps that data should be coming from something that is reviewed by an independent. Otherwise, it could be skewed or twisted around. You don't want that to happen as well.
Let's know when you took power. These are the number of galamsey sites that we had. Do you understand? This is the number that we've been able to eradicate. This is how much the country has gained. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that we can speak to it.
And that's how far we have to go. That kind of thing.
But when you say we are doing well, Chief.
Okay, you want an objective basis.
Sure,
I get that. That's fine. But let's move on. I mean, we can
also
go.
Conclude.
I thought you concluded. I gave you that. Okay, 30 seconds, please, to conclude, and then we move on.
That there are institutions who are supposed to monitor these activities.
Right.
That is where information is supposed to be generated and then fed to the public. It's not supposed to be the political wing of government that's supposed to do it. EPA, Minerals Commission, all these institutions are supposed to be part of it. Let's be optimistic about what the government is doing. Finally, I would think that Mr. Redu misread Article 268. If you read 269, it tells us that the Minerals Commission doesn't need to revert to Parliament before granting concessions.
Very well, that's fine. I mean,
it says notwithstanding Article 268 of the Constitution, it means that it's creating an exception. Parliament may, upon the recommendation of any of the commissions established by
so
this.
there's not,
so
it does not say the Minerals Commission does not need.
I'm coming.
It says Parliament by resolution of not less than 2/3. Read it well.
Shall we? Yes, I think that's fine, but we can.
So that's why I said it's not too clear cut that you have to go and ask for ratification for every lease you grant.
Sure, that is subject to interpretation, so we definitely cannot conclude on that, but we can move on to another topic lined up for today's conversation, and which is the BNI and the National Communication Authority issues. I'm talking about the former officials of the NCA and, of course, a Deputy National Security Coordinator who have been, cited as having engaged in some alleged malfeasance, if you like. Now, we'll be looking at the findings of the BNI's work so far.
Are you sure these are findings?
Moving on, we'll see. I mean,
these are claims made by the Minister
it's subject to your interpretation, I guess, but,
no, but certainly not
we are looking at it as, and nobody currently has come out to, with the exception of Alhaji Osman, who we are told is not available. The other three are reported to have confessed, unless the BNI report, as it's been put out there, is not the whole truth. But otherwise, that's what is in there. So let's start by looking at this whole development. Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, I'll start with you. What do you make of this whole development? Clearly, this isn't the first time such things have come in. When there's a change in government, we find the security agencies, like I said in my intro, very up and doing a lot of things, a number of persons, arrested here and there, allegations leveled here and there, and all of that. What do you make of this current situation?
Well, it's a national